Chairman, Mr. Chairman, we have submitted testimony. This is Jen Matrowski with me from the Senate Republican office. We've submitted testimony. So this was a very worthwhile exchange, and I'm going to keep this very, very brief. Look, we all care about kids. This issue is not about money. It's not about lockbox. It's not about a federal judge. It's not about a court system. It's about kids. And while I see the benefit of a resolution, of a settlement, I would argue I don't believe this document gets us there. And I think if we were to say, if we're so inclined to reject this document, but we were to say, as Republicans, as Democrats, as people on approps for the money issue, on the Children's Committee with respect to their issues and their charge, that we could do a better job, that we can actually put the money in, but we can put measurable quotas or measurable criteria in which we can make sure that we are providing the best services for our kids under our protection, if you would. There's not a greater obligation in this building but that. If we were to send that message that we can and we will do it together as a group, and I think we can and will do it together as a group, I don't see a plaintiff saying there's no motion for contempt pending against the state. We recognize you as a model for many of the things that you're doing, that people are coming to Connecticut to learn about our system, that they would turn around and say, no, we see everyone coming together. I'm glad we brought this issue, but I got to carry on with the lawsuit. I think there'd be some liberty given to us to say we get it, but we are going to do better than this. We have 6 measurements. To reduce the criteria under those measurements, I would argue, is a step backwards. We need to not have the Baby Dylans of the world that we saw last summer. We need to protect against that. Just saying you're visiting and checking off the box is not enough. We need to know, what does that mean when you visit? Did you interact with the child? What was the child like? Those are the things we have to talk about. And there isn't anybody in this legislature who doesn't believe that's a critical function of this state. DCF is a tough agency, and unfortunately tragedies are going to happen from time to time. It's just a reality. But we could do more to do better for these kids. So I would suggest if we do reject this, we reject it with a message, a strong message and a healthy message. And I think with the Attorney General's office and Commissioner Katz carrying it forward, we can get a better deal and a better system for the kids that we have to care for in our system. I have the rest of the comments. We're not going to go through it. We're prepared to testify. I thought there was a very healthy exchange, and I don't see the need to go through all the other comments. They're certainly in there. You have other speakers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Fasano. Representative Walker.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your testimony. Did you submit testimony to us? Because everybody asked me, did you submit testimony?
Yes, I
Okay,
submitted
good.
9 pages.
9 pages? Are you an
Which, according
attorney
to
by
Senator
chance?
Austin, I will not read.
Okay. I have a question, though. So in the proposal before us, what are the things that you are most concerned about that you have in this proposal?
It's in our proposal. What I'd like to do is maybe have Jen Matrowski talk about a few of those things because she worked so hard on these issues.
Okay. Thank you. Would you introduce yourself, madam, please?
Sure. Jennifer Maczarowski from the Senate Republican Office. I am Chief Counsel. And there are a number of concerns, but I'll try to sort of hit what I think are the most significant. One is, are the outcome measures, frankly, the current outcome measures, sufficient to really ensure that children are being kept safe to the best of our ability? And you have the London Sachs case, the Baby Dylan case, the events at CJTS, all that suggests that, as the Office of Child Advocate has pointed out, there are systemic issues still facing this agency in terms of meeting its core function to keep children safe. So that's the big picture, is, are even the current outcome measures sufficient? This agreement would weaken and narrow those measures in a few important ways, and that is in our testimony. one way it would do that is it shortens the time frame by which the department has to maintain compliance on those remaining 6 or 8 stubborn outcome measures from 1 quarter to 2 quarter. And I'm concerned about that, or we're concerned about that for a couple of reasons, and the commissioner referred to the ability that will allow her to sort of check off one by one or flip off one by one, and the AG pointed out too that will allow them to sort of put it on a shelf once they've achieved it. And that raises concerns for us because the challenge in child safety is maintaining success over time and across multiple factors and multiple departments. I mean, the Baby Dylan case was an unfortunate example of that, where there were failures in risk assessment, failures in properly licensing a foster care home, and then failures in the site visits not being effective in actually ensuring the safety of that child. So the challenge for this agency historically has been maintaining success over multiple departments, multiple outcome measures over time. And so shortening that time frame is problematic in our eyes. Giving greater authority to the department itself to do its own monitoring. Under the current agreement, the agreement requires the monitor to continue to report and monitor the department for a full year after the court terminates jurisdiction. Under this agreement, the department would be able to self-monitor and self-report. And I find it a little bit ironic because in the most recent court monitor reports, for site work or home visits, there's no success range given for that, and there's a footnote, and the footnote says that although the department's internal monitoring showed achievement of that metric, the monitor was not confident that in fact those site visits met the substantive criteria for being effective site visits. And so I think there's been a challenge with whether the self-monitoring that the department does is transparent and effective. And giving greater authority for self-monitoring raises concerns in our eyes. So substantively, those are concerns that we have regarding the lowering and narrowing of the existing standards. And then beyond that is what, as Representative Rosario discussed, what's our framework for, even if we achieve getting out from under, if that's our goal, what's our framework for ensuring continued success beyond that? Getting out from under the court monitor, court oversight, we all want that, but it has to mean something. It has to mean that kids are actually safer. And we need to have the systems in place to know that, be honest about it, and report it, and fix it where we're failing. The other aspect of it is the autonomy, the lockbox, or the autonomy and the policymaking authority of this body. This, for the first time, and with all due respect, I think there is a fundamental difference between the existing plan and this plan with regard to its infringement on the policymaking authority of this body. It requires not just funding of all child care services across the state and across state agencies, but that this particular department's budget must be a minimum of $800 million. And I think there was a good dialogue about what aspects of that $800 million are direct child care services that are part of 1F. And I think there was a reference to $480 million being direct child care services. But this agreement will put a lockbox around $800 million. There was mention of the fact that juvenile justice, for example, is not part of the 1F decree, and there's been a lot of debate in this body about whether CJTS should be closed, whether juvenile justice is best run by DCF or would the judicial department, who historically has had a better track record of running juvenile justice programs, would be a better agency to run those. And that's not even part of 1F, and yet by putting a lockbox around $800 million, you're effectively requiring that those programs continue to be run by DCF. So I think there's overreaching in terms of the mandate in this agreement that severely will infringe upon this body's policy-making authority, notwithstanding everyone's desire to, fully fund child care services.
Thank you, and I didn't take into account the juvenile justice component of it, so I'm glad you brought that to mind. But in looking at the oversight component, I think a lot of us have expressed the concern about not being part of that conversation of oversight. So thank you, Senator, for your testimony, and thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions for Senator Fasano? Thank you. Hearing none, thank you so much
Thank you.
for your testimony and for your patience.
Thank you.